see some stuff in front of you, for some letters of interest with respect to some property turned down.
Good. Tony, streets or parks you choose.
There it says whatever's shorter. It's okay. Evening, everyone. Street commission, we did not have meeting today. Wasn't much for an agenda, so just take a break from that. Park board. I was not there, but Riley and Caroline built the board again on some priority projects. They discussed that and what to prioritize for short-term future needs. We talked about a couple of things to cut back on our staff time. One is moving picnic tables every other day. We get a lot of requests from different parks. They want more picnic tables, less. They want more over here. So we kind of talked to the park board about it and say it's a lot of staff time. We're moving around fuel, and if we're feeling is that they want to move their picnic tables, if they need more, they can get them from different areas of town. So we're gonna try and work through that, and then volleyball nets, we're raising them up and down, up and down, up and down. Men's tournament, women's tournament, co-ed tournament. And so we got out of that too. So there's some other people that are gonna do that. We talked about pool repairs, future needs. We talked about that at the budget meeting, and then Beach Park Rotary Science was approved, I believe, right? A couple additions, no?
No, coming back for another proposal.
Come back. That's all I got. Questions?
Yeah, question. How many, I see there's slabs on Beach Park. Besides those benches, how many more do we have?
We did,
We have a lot.
yeah, we did 5 slabs and we have 4 new benches going in, so we have an opening since we are doing some, we might as well do it all this.
I thought we did.
Yeah, and I'll keep it short. I mean, I've been here, you know, how long we did 3 or 4 benches over that time, and then through COVID, we had, I think 5 requests or 6. But we get a lot of new benches.
That's fine. Anything from the department that you want to pass on there? Okay. Plan commission.
We just approved a guest guide at 106 Market, and otherwise that was it, and our next meeting is next Tuesday.
That's good. I rarely get an HPC update because it's usually related to private business owner and their regional sign applications and things like that, but related to city business. I'm sure you remember council approved the full streetscape package, which included the improvements to the clock structure, or I should say the seating around the clock structure, because of changes in grade and that concrete being redone. There was some question about whether the intent was to really use limestone or use manufactured limestone colored manufactured stone. And it was clarified today in a special meeting that the intent was limestone, so that's what they're going to go forward with. And that'll be in sort of the same utilization of that material as is done at the amphitheater, and limestone is actually used in almost all of our parks. It's used in Canyon Park. It's already used in Heritage Park, and of course, it's part of the foundation of all the structures downtown.
Didn't we already approve that?
We did, but it was just misunderstanding. We Karen called and said, "Can you come down and look at the color?" And I just assumed it was concrete, and she had a box of manufactured stone. And I said, "That's not limestone. We approved limestone." So we looked back, and sure enough, that's what had been approved. But apparently there was some design considerations for getting a very smooth, perfect circle. That manufactured stone does that better, but the HPC got the intent of the original approval was limestone, and that is what council approved. So anyway, just that had that we are often almost never doing approval of city projects. I guess every once in a while a bench or something comes up in parks, but it's usually not that. So with that, administrator report.
Happy 1-year anniversary to Ryan Marking, who joined the ambulance service 1 year ago. Stand up. Managing the ambulance service is no easy task, with a number of challenges putting rural ambulances out of business. Since his time, Ryan has tackled a number of long-held priorities for Wabasha, bringing in advanced life support services and starting a process for receiving township residents. He's also secured a number of grants and is a data person who loves using data to drive decision-making. Ryan has a poster on his desk that he looks at daily with, it just says good on it, with a picture of the decorated ex-Navy SEAL officer. So whenever a colleague presents him with a problem or challenge, or is experiencing a problem to this ex-Navy SEAL officer, he would always say good. And that's how Ryan approaches his job and challenges presented in his life. Anytime something doesn't work out or go as he plans, he says good because it's helping him grow professionally and personally. And so we're fortunate to have you and congratulations.
So you want to do my pass? Thank you, Ryan.
Good.
Okay, good, yes. And so we just started 2 part-time EMTs with the ambulance service. Actually, Colton is a part-time paramedic. We also learned that we got a successful $50,000 USDA equipment grant towards the 2025 ambulance purchase. The police department had 1 candidate and Rob is undergoing a background check on the candidate, so we don't know the outcome yet. And then it was a busy summer, which was already said. Just wanted to do a shout out for the library, who had a hugely successful summer reading program, and the pool was busy as well. I think that's it. Me, John, David Woodley, and Craig Falcom, Brian Malm, and I are trying to wrap up negotiations with the Coners to operationalize the port. I was trying to remember class I took on conflict negotiations, so I'm thinking I'm gonna start next meeting. What are we all trying to achieve here? And hopefully we'll bring it home at our next meeting. We have another, this is like maybe the 3rd round of negotiations.
But I think
So,
really understandable.
Yes.
Question.
So
So what's the problem?
Just about the amount of land, you know.
just kind of arguing over the land purchase at this point. We've got everything else figured out.
Yeah, no, I think it's been started trying to be an observer, not being a member of the report, but wanting to steward this whole. The agreement, I've been at the table and it's been very civil and, you know, good work on staff's part for sure. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, so I think we said we do 2, 3, and 5. Okay, so starting with 2, the warming house concession bid, the athletic complex came in. Tony, do you want to keep it up first? Caroline?
Oh.
I was gonna rely on you for.
Yeah.
System a little bit. Different doors, cheaper doors, and the outside. When we were talking about 10 on the outside of fall walls. Possibly hit the building. Long lasting, and I just think you might have it on your building,
Maybe,
the rental, but.
yeah,
Seems to be, there's a lot of houses using it, smaller commercial buildings, and so do some changes. It really reduced the cost, and there's still a couple of things that we to even go further if we decide to, but at least we got to the starting point, I think, with a local contractor, and we met probably 3-4 times. Went over different designs, we put bigger eaves on it, and then on the one end, we went with, or both ends have, continued gable ends on the posts, we put bigger tables under there. It's ADA accessible, there's heat in there, we gotta decide on a furnace for so much money, or a couple wall hanging, ceiling hanging heaters, which would be probably $10,000 cheaper, so. I don't know if you got questions.
I have some things that I can add to. This is where the warming house is gonna be situated. That was a question from Dean, so that's the hockey rink. Those are the fields, and this would be the restrooms right here on the right, and that would be the concessions on the left. And like right here is basically storage. The other thing is we took some pictures of Kellogg concessions, and this is the builder who's doing this, so that's kind of what the material would look on the outside. And then I also, these are the original design, so a lot of it's similar, except this will be an LP Smart side as Tony was saying, and the roofing material is slightly different, and then with larger overhangs. The one thing for me from a procurement standpoint was different is we procured this building several times at $350,000 and then asked for John's help in providing design ideas to lower the cost. Since it's under $175,000, our procurement policy allows us to negotiate with one person. John has come with good references, in particular from the city of Kellogg. The problem too is if we try to go get a second bid, as we discussed, we would have to engage another architect designer. I think Bolton and May gave us what they could and kind of start the process all over. And then I will mention that Tony did ask around other local contractors if they were interested in bidding, and they did not. And then, as I included in the notes, WKAF included a proposal to us to say that we could pay them as their contract manager, like a contract manager's services with a 7% to manage the process. So in this process, Tony is actually gonna be doing the draws. I'll probably create the contract, and we're gonna try to manage ourselves to save the city some money, but typically, you know, that's the role that Bolton and Nate has. So we thought that probably what we heard from council was, let's try to get the price down. And so this is a recommendation, but we can also start over and get somebody else to redesign it for us, or we could do this contract management. But that's the staff recommendation, is we go with this one that we have. It's a lot, but I think from what I'm hearing on pricing and commercial, I thought he brought a lot of good ideas for our vision of wanting a simple structure. We kept using, we don't want the Taj Mahal. I don't think Bolton may give us a Taj Mahal, but as I'm learning about pricing for this type of material, metal, it's just very expensive right now. So just kind of wanted feedback from council on, I just struggled because there's no way these are his ideas for us to use all his ideas, and you know, so.
I've been down in Kellogg, I'm sure the number of you guys have, did a wonderful job down there. It's a beautiful building. And I don't think we're gonna get a better deal than what we have here. So I think we should go ahead and do this.
Yeah, I'm happy with the contractor can bring us this solution. This is what I think we always anticipated, we wanted, you know, a design firm is gonna architecturally design you a building, but I don't think we need an architect design building for this purpose. I think this is,
Add 50,000 onto it.
yeah, and I value design service greatly, but this is really straightforward. It's 800 square feet, something like that. I mean, it's really just very utilitarian. I've been in lots of these buildings, they're all kind of the same, and this is I think, very satisfactory.
Yeah, and the other thing, I don't know if Tony mentioned that I noted is one thing that saved us a lot of money is the original proposal went 4 feet down, and this is just a slab on grade. So he had the cost for us, of which we are grateful, because he kind of just had done it before in Kellogg, and then does a lot of building, so he's like, if I were doing it and designing it and was finding money, that's how I would kind of take on things. And Tony's very comfortable with the proposal.
Everything that has to happen is building's got to pass building code anyway, so I'm just gonna be kind of go between them two and checking on it and making sure that, you know, what he presented us is right, and it's really no different than the Public Works Edition. You know, so I mean, I don't see a problem with it at this point, so.
And did you want to talk about the performance bond? I mean, did you want us to discuss that?
Oh, yeah, I put that in the notes. I think we're recommending that since we have a trusting relationship and he's local. I did get some feedback from Jacob Nicolay, who's working with Darren, that you can not require it, and it would add about $5,000 in cost. So again, we think we're gonna pay him as work is completed. It's the kind of thing that you would use in case a contractor goes bankrupt, or you think they would leave town and, you know, leave you hanging. So we didn't feel like that. We felt comfortable with the reputation that he brings locally. So if council's comfortable with that.
I'll make a motion to. Contract with, give me the name. Josh Smoker. For construction, fashion, and ornaments.
Get a second?
For $168,330.
We have a first from Dean, we have a second from Jeff, any further discussion? Thanks for working on this. I know Tony didn't want to project manage this, we talked about this a long time ago, but it just felt like one of those things that has got a little over design in the project. And it's a big project, so it seemed like a management can pull up. I appreciate it.
I've written before, so I'm gonna help Tony on the contract end, and then Tony's gonna be our project manager.
Well, the contract is not allowed to micromanage it anyway, so it's all good. He's a contractor. All right, very good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Thank you for all that work. And now we're on 3, which is the chamber request. Is that what? 4.
Three requests.
Okay. So chamber request. We have Court here with us. You can see in the agenda packet, there's a letter to all of us on council. The chamber is requesting to make some tenant improvements to the building with no cost to the city. We'll talk tonight, Courtney, about the long-term physical properties and if you like, but we know there's probably a 2 or maybe 5-year horizon on anything that the city would like to do on that kind of properties. So this report about the interior changes, yeah. Go ahead, Dean.
You can come
Welcome, Courtney.
on.
You're nice.
I don't think I met you before. I'll make a motion
Okay, sounds good. Go ahead, Dean.
to approve.
Yeah, motion from Dean. With a second.
Second.
With a second from Brian. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. And now the last thing for this crew, we are gonna talk to Darren about this approval to apply for the variance. I guess maybe Darren, maybe you don't have much to add, but Christie has given advice.
Come on up.
Yeah, come on up, Darren. Planning staff doesn't have any
I
concerns.
really don't have much to add to it, I mean, it's
Yeah.
cut and dry, we just go up here and have my right to variance just approved, so we can move forward with this onto the bidding process.
Yeah, and you probably found
Am I right with that?
that it's gonna require a little bit of consulting time on Christie's behalf to do that, the public notices to neighbors, et cetera.
Yeah, there's a 25-foot building setback. We only need a 5-foot variance. So we'll be 20 feet off the rear property line instead of 25, so very good.
It's kind of within our what would be typically, right?
Yeah.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve, we have a second.
I'll second.
I'm gonna echo, but Brian closer to the motion from John, second from Brian. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Close and sign.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, staff, for sticking through it. You guys need to leave, you understand? And now I guess I'll go to, just I don't forget it. No, I'm sorry, to go through the other sheet for these. So, actually, we'll hit our budget. So on our 2024 budget levy special meeting, we came up with this initial levy increase, which is will initially be set at 7.1%. Of course, we all have the exchange, probably remembers this from this director days. Once that levy, we can lower it, but we cannot raise it. Anything you want to share in addition?
Yeah,
Special meeting?
Ryan brought a request to potentially plan for an additional full-time paramedic position, and we thought, again, he can lay the table for that, but we'll take that through ambulance commission and back here first. But we wanted to plan for it. And then has all the things we reviewed that basically we're gonna invest in our capital improvement projects again. We retired some debt this year. And the new debt we'll take on is those projects in our plans and future street repairs that we have. And potentially looking at our city buildings, ambulance and fire. And so, yeah, and then we looked into IT costs and we were able to separate out some fixed one-time costs versus monthly reoccurring. And so we were able to lower that a little bit. But in looking at it, we just at this point use a lot of IT. Police department had IT charges. Microsoft increased their charges, and then we are getting good IT contracted services, but in there added a lot of firewalls and protection and stuff, and so we think that makes sense to protect things. So nothing looked crazy to me. The cost of this council software that we use is $4,000 a year, and we love the software. I can't imagine getting rid of agenda quick, so it all seemed normal, but we were able to bring that down a little bit since we last spoke. Ryan, do you want to just briefly talk on your request and include an additional?
So, kind of what I had looked at is, August was kind of a rough month for us. We turned down 23 transfers, which is a lot of money that we're getting on the table. So we're projecting our, what we've been collecting revenue from our billing. We increased what we had originally put on the for in August by $30,000. And right now we're on pace to go well over what we put in the 2024 budget. And so the kind of the premise behind this was plan for it. We have a couple months to be able to see if our numbers are continuing to go up, which they are. We're 94 calls ahead of where we were at this point last year. That's really without any real impact from our ALS transfers that we're now starting to get called for. Like city's done 501 transfers out of Wabasha since 2021. So the call volume is there, and so I can see us that going up, and with that, you know, our revenues will go up. And then we have a lot of overtime with our current staff. We're having a lot of trouble. We've tried some different scheduling things, which has helped a little bit, but we still have quite a bit of overtime. So kind of help having this additional full-time paramedic will help kind of take some more of those calls and hopefully help kind of alleviate some of our other staffing issues. And then kind of relieve some of the pressure of our paid on call staff too, who have other jobs outside of the service. So, you know, if we get to October and all of a sudden our revenues and call volumes aren't doing what I think they're going to continue to do, I'm perfectly okay with taking this full-time position out of the budget. But I wanted to make sure that it's going the way I think it's gonna go that we had it planned for, and so it's not. Something we have to try to work around.
Well, go ahead. Finish up.
That's really all I have, if you're interested, so far, we've been able to build 18 AOS calls. We've done one paramedic intercept with Pepin. And so I haven't gotten, the revenue yet. Hopefully it's kind of the first month that I'll see, as a growing company, to differentiate what we collect revenue from AOS versus DOS and what we bill AOS versus DOS, so we can show,
Yeah.
So when our last full-time staff left, we cut down and hired 2 part-time staff, so now we have 3 full-time, 3 part-time. So this would make us 4 full-time, 3 part-time. The one thing that I didn't mention is if, like I said, the numbers are going up the way I think they're going to go up, I would be able to add additional revenue into our budget, which from what Caroline has told me would then also affect that number, bringing it down a little bit. So I kept it at 310 because I thought that was an obtainable number, but also you know, a number that I think has potential to have some added to it, if, like I said, if this continues to go.
And we've had a lot of turnover on the part-time side, right?
The paid on call side is.
Yes.
And since I've been here, we've had quite a bit of turnover on.
A lot of this attrition, it's, but the bunch that have been on for a while, it kind of stepped back or stepped away and the new ones coming.
And that's the one thing with UMass, turnover is inevitable. And on average, obviously, I don't think that's our true cost. But a study that I read says on average, every time you turn over an employee, the UMass services cost your organization $10,000. I don't think that's our true cost, but that's in general what they say, a turnover of an employee of the ambulance service.
The reason I'm asking these questions is when I first got in the council back in '98, we had a lot of turnover in our police department. They had a lot of part-timers. They would come in, they would get their training and so forth, and they would use us as a stepping stone. And I'm just wondering if that's the same thing that's going on with ambulance. Are they coming in, getting their whatever certificates and so forth and so on, and then moving to other cities?
So we haven't had, when I started as a part-time before I was hired as the director this time. And at the time, I believe I was the only part-time person that we had. And then I transitioned into the director role, and then we filled our part-time position, which then he is now a full-time employee. The 3 part-time people that we have all have full-time EMS jobs somewhere else. So I don't think this is a stepping stone for them. I know for a fact 2 of them are using it as a way to make additional money, but not have to work overtime at their regular job. So I think this is their way of being able to step back a little bit.
That's good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't think so. All right, any other questions about the additional budget highlights or things we thought of after our budget meeting that you want staff to think about before we revisit this? Then we could entertain a motion to approve this preliminary budget resolution.
That's a little.
With a motion.
Everybody did.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, okay, I thought you just.
No, I made a motion to add this
budget.
to the agenda. I didn't make a motion to approve the budget yet.
Okay, that's what I thought, that's why I understood that, I was so caught up in the spirit of discussion, I understood it, so we have Jean's motion to approve the budget, levy resolution, a second from Dean, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, guys. All right, now I'm kind of maybe lost track here, we've done 1, we've done 2, we've done 3, we've not done 4, so approval to seek letters of interest for new development on city-owned properties.
Ben, you wanna take that up?
Evening, everybody. So these are on the agenda tonight as combination of city staff, port authority, and the watch committee have been discussing ways to kind of take the next steps of promoting developable lands and address some of the needs that are identified in the housing study adopted by council back in May, I believe it was. And so port staff has been working on putting together these letters of interest that the Port Authority wanted to see, along with, of course, our city staff. These 3 letters of interest for Mosquito Field, Main Street East, and the Grandpa's Barn building downtown have been identified by the committee and Port Authority as kind of the lowest hanging fruit of city-owned public property that could be promoted. Has been most development ready. And so with these, it was a little bit of waiver between request for proposals, letters of interest. Landed on letters of interest because it's a bit more of a testing the waters per se, to see if there's any interested developers that might have ideas for these pieces of property. So we would get these out if approved by council this month, and start seeking submissions until we have some that are acceptable, and or intriguing, of interest to city staff and board staff. So I'm open to any questions that you might have on these interests.
I'll just add, I have a laugh at lowest hanging fruit a lot.
Right, that's basically tearing that.
There's nothing low hanging about it.
Yeah.
But the important thing is, I think, you know, Tony who's left brought up East Main Street. He's like, why is the city of Wabasha spending money every year to mow this property? So it's non-taxable. I think, you know, Grandpa's Barn, the transfer building came up when one of my first meetings, we had a, you know, $8,000 roof repair on it. And then mosquito field, I think is gonna be a challenge, but I mean, I think that we would love it if somebody builds commercial retail there. It's just, you have to get through like a lot of fill. But the timing as well, because we have this developers meeting, and so then it allows us to kind of front all those properties. The other thing that we used to do in the city of La Crosse is put it out on La Crosse, or not La Crosse, out as a for sale by owner and get it on an MLS. So I know there's a lot of realtors in our group, so we could see if through an MLS listing, we could get it out as a for sale by owner opportunity as well, and that it gets anyone that looks up and so could see them. But I think right now we're just planning on putting it on our website and sharing it at the meetings.
Yeah. I would put on MLS. Years ago, we looked at mosquito field and we had a past council person bid on that. He was gonna purchase it. And then not the Port Authority, but the EDA backed out of that one for some reason. But I think there's people out there that would look at those properties and they're not developers, but I think they'd be interested in them.
So if I may, thanks, Beth, for all this, for getting it this far, much appreciated. What I ask is that we get some kind of a cursory approval tonight on these, and then kind of get them back to the Port Authority. There's some wordsmithing and stuff I kind of like to see on a couple of these. I'm speaking out of turn with the balance of the Port Authority to it. If you guys would accept that, that'd be great. We could still. We'll talk about it certainly at the housing forum, but at a more formal release, I think we need to dial these a little bit.
Yeah.
I question like the mosquito field, there's the parcel split, appear to be split across the road. We need to really look at that. There's a few things there.
Okay. Is there any that you think are ready to go, or do you want to look at all?
I wouldn't mind looking at it all.
And then-
I'm sorry.
In the staff report, I also wanted some comments, because I did want to say that we have learned. If this was no longer used by the chamber, there would be commercial interest for the city, so we can theoretically just praise it and list it for sale all on its own versus trying to make it a bigger long-term goal. So just also added that for conversation.
Grandpa's Barn was looked at years ago by the indoor flea market out here. And at that time, they were told it was not for sale, but they would have built a brand new building down there. They could have gotten their hands on it, which would have kept them waiting probably. So, but there again, my question is, what's the drawback of putting it on and all that?
I guess the only drawback I can see is that council isn't clear on the intent. My intent is that it needs to be used for highest and best use, which I think at the time.
Well, I understand that, but
That's my only.
going back to it again, if you have a business owner now that's interested in the property, but he's not a developer, how does he get on, you know?
So again, I'm gonna hold I have a business mind about that too, and real estate is important to our local businesses, and there's sort of a scarcity of it at times, but. For the city's interest, because I've been told by every major employer and every other employer that housing is such a crisis. That I think if we give up that opportunity to give that person a business opportunity, we've lost our chance of leveraging housing, unless we feel like we can satisfy. Our intent to develop housing in the other remaining parcels that we have, and we may feel that way. You know, I think, yes, I question, for instance, the value of knocking down a building of that caliber, if it can be used, I think it's gonna have a way bigger price tag than we can just get rid of that structure, so we may find there's just too many barriers for that one to become a priority. You know, yes, there's tons of buildings out at the other site, but there aren't there's not buildings there. So yeah, as long as we can strategize and kind of keep that housing priority, and mixed use is fine with me, it's not like I'm saying no commercial, but for sure housing. As long as that stays the priority, hopefully what council's pushing forward, then, you know, we may find that one of the parts isn't best suited for that, you know, has some constraints for housing.
Yeah, but just to be clear, this would say we're only accepting letters of interest if you want to take all 3 properties, combine them, tear them down and build new housing there. It's not just to sell out Grandpa's Farm, because we need to negotiate that with the chamber. So it was, what we told the chamber and our food share partners is this will be 5 years out. So
Can
you've
you
got to
repeat what
really,
you just said? We're only gonna sell them to a developer comes and takes all 3 parcels.
yeah,
No,
it's
no.
not for individual sale. Yeah.
All 3 parcels on second.
Not all 3 in
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
all
sorry.
3,
Yeah.
the parking lot, the food share and the transfer. No,
Yeah.
It's a buy one, get two free.
But if somebody said, I want to buy the chamber building only to put in to build my indoor flea market, we said, no, we're looking for someone that wants to build a house.
Development.
Yeah.
We're gonna start there and work our way to, you know what I mean?
I understand, I was just,
And I know there's been lots of intent, even in the short time I lived here, expressed about what that should be, but we're at a moment where I think we're aligned on this housing is such a critical factor for the social and economic well-being of our community that's where we're not just trying to get rid of property. We're trying to develop housing.
And then you're seeing with our housing reform, I mean, the interest is there, so.
Yeah. There's definitely, based on what I've heard from Kathy in conversation, there's definitely interest in doing some work in Wabasha. It's just a matter of making Wabasha property available and working with them.
I think really get back to community that probably hasn't been involved in this housing there is, what about a hotel in that area? I know that's gonna come up. So be ready for answers. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is.
And with respect to what we call the river, kind of identified the old athletic field, river crossing or whatever, I mean, we recognize that list is long to get it to a point where it's shovel ready. And all that includes mapping the highway and zoning and DNR and maybe some soil mitigation, all kinds of different things. So, and raising it. That's it.
I know there was foreign studies done on that, and there were contaminants in that area.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you don't find it. Okay.
We got a lease with chamber on that for 2 years. Yeah, so we can't sell it right now anyway. Well, they just couldn't take possession for 2 years, yeah.
I'm sure there's a out of the league.
I'm gonna remain a good partner to chambers and share and keep them informed of what our intent is. What I have shared is our intent is
I was,
housing.
the city was.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, there's a good pause in our, I'm sure.
So if you listed a MLS, though, you'd still be specifying it that you want really proposals. You don't want to just buying the land. That's when I don't like.
Yeah,
MLS,
I think-
just like.
Yeah.
We could be specific in our descriptions. Maybe it's a bad idea, it's just, we were finding, when my old job, we just put it on like a website, you know, no one's anxiously checking this video. Like, how could we get more exposure, so we kind of be specific in the description, but it led to confusion for sure, and this phone call, so we could ask the board their opinions.
Yeah. Anyone with money out there is checking the MLS all the time. Looking for property. They're not going to Wabasha.org. Everything what we have.
Sorry, guys, that site is great. That's not the first stop always.
No.
Yeah. All right, so in the spirit of all that, are we okay allowing these letters of intent to be edited, modified so that they're readable and clear and with the spirit of this discussion? Yeah.
Yes.
And do you need our formal action on this?
I think because it's your property.
I'll second.
Brian, first, Tim, second, third, by Jeff, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, this is like something we can hold on to at this point for this, okay. Cool. All right, so now we are to the Alpine minor plat. We're gonna have anybody on the line for that?
I can just be
Good,
good.
okay,
if
nice.
I-
Go ahead.
This should clean up, there's lots in a subdivision up on Alpine Ridge, right behind the ski hill. And there was just these two random parcels behind that the lot owner bought, they're just landlocked green space. And so they're just combining their lot with that property, so we're making less parcels, bigger lots. So total cleanup, dedicating some easements that the city should have had in the first place for water, sewer and storm. So it's improvements all around.
So this doesn't affect that levy or that for the ski hill up there, does it? Because I remember this coming to the planning commission about potentially building on this, and I'm like. That was probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I don't think
Gonna build on it.
Well, I don't know, that's what my question was.
Oh, well, these guys own it, so.
Well, originally it was talked about there was somebody that was gonna build on it
Hmm,
a while back. I mean, we're talking 6-8 years ago. Right?
hmm.
Okay, so. I don't-
Well, by combining them, it'll negate the building, because there'd already be a building on it. Yeah.
I approve.
Second.
From first and second, and first further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Listen to Brian. And. Maybe disconnect. Okay, super, thanks, Carol.
So, it was brought to their attention that there's a funding for small cities under 10,000 to apply for anything looking at stormwater or flood preparation. And, in speaking with Brian Malm, we just discussed, what about just a citywide flood mitigation plan? And they get feedback for staff to where the problematic areas are and see if there's a cost solution that can prevent flooding in those areas. But we were gonna maybe say, well, what about here and here? And then I thought it'd be better to look citywide at the flooding. So it is about $1,000 to prepare the application. I don't have time to write it and yeah, I mean, I don't have the expertise. I have thought too, I mean, Brian Malm is really good and he knows the city, and right off the bat, he can name 2 or 3 sites that he knows are problematic for us. But if we wanted to, I think I'm learning other engineering firms to get an in with the city of Wabasha, maybe, do that for free. But they wouldn't bring the background knowledge that Brian and both of the Nicks has with where our flooding issues are. So, wondering, so I think you could count as match city staff time, so that's, and it was 10% match. And then the other thing is, I felt pretty overwhelmed lately, and I asked Brian, would this need a lot of staff time to help you? And he said, we would just seek staff input on where the problematic areas are. And I don't know if there's a council subcommittee saying like, oh, be sure to look at this, but we could, so anyways, he didn't think it would be a lot of staff time. And we like the fact that it was under 10,000
For cities under
for
10,000.
the competition.
And remind me again what the award total we would be seeking,
I don't think Brian gave me that number, but I know that I can't remember, I figured, it's probably I'm guessing a $50,000 study. So,
Full disclosure, I still, like a maniac, read every one of the messages that we get from MPCA, USDA, and there's just money flowing so fast and furiously. And we both notice that when it's less than 10,000, that puts us in a very different position competitively. you know, do we need a flood mitigation plan? I don't know, but I think every time we find ourselves applying for any money of any kind, we need to be describing the problem very accurately. And so this would be a plan we could reference when we seek funds to actually mitigate issues. Do we know that we're gonna try to mitigate issues? I don't know that we do or don't, but yeah, we just on a regular basis kind of poke each other, like, did you see this, did you see that one? And you know, I recognize that, you know, one thing that maybe Wendy thought was gonna be useful for applying these funds, probably a down the road situation. And maybe this would be useful in that. I don't know, do you think that having a total citywide flood mitigation plan will be useful when we ultimately have to withdraw?
We have to do it anyways.
Yeah, so we're just trying to be thoughtful and deliberate when there is money available, limited leverage resources to try to get more water.
Yeah.
So I think we should use bold and make, I should do it.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
mean. You know, we have,
Go ahead.
we have, you go ahead.
I mean, what's the flood mitigation plan gonna tell us? We know where Wabasha floods,
It's-
and they're gonna tell us we're gonna build, we gotta put sand here, we gotta
No,
put
it'd
big
be-
levees and stuff.
It would be-
What's the citywide flood mitigation plan gonna tell? That we don't already know.
I'm hoping, you know, Brian was like, hey, you could raise the road level here. And then if there's any solutions that help our homeowners get out of the floodplain, I think it's a great idea. Because the maps are gonna get redrawn again, and then our homeowners, our Wabasha residents are now saddled with a $3,000, $5,000 a month year floodplain. So those are some of my goals. But we would have to say, are we just looking to, you know, make, one of the things Brian brought up right away is like, if it floods worse than it did this year, our hospital could be cut off, we could be, well, that wasn't since the 60s, but I mean, it would prepare us, I think, to mitigate some of those issues. And I've watched a community get told that they now have a $1,000 flood bill, and it's not fun, so if we could get ahead of it for some of our residents, if they were thinking about it, and this could get you out of the floodplain. I don't know if that's a result, but that would be meaningful for me. Wendy, any comments from what you learned?
Too bad we can't apply for FEMA buyouts for East Main Street.
It would theoretically also tell you, hey, if FEMA buyout makes sense here, you know, go for it, city of Wabasha. So if you ask me, what do we undertake for the next flood, other than it wasn't a ton of work this year? You know, I don't know that we would know where to buy somebody out. I mean, we have an idea, so.
This would also give us, an idea of what, like, what. Sewer lines need to be lined and so forth and so on in the future, because I know we have a bunch of that work coming up. And I can't out other stuff, but I'm not on them.
I wondered about our wastewater treatment facility. I mean, the whole infrastructure that manages the water through the flood.
Yeah, and I know, you know, we're in trouble with that line from the west side, from the crop from the harbor there where it goes. And nobody talks about it because it's not written down anyway, so it's not in the plan, so. And I don't know.
We've been like-minded in, like, if you don't plan it, you don't do it, and if you don't plan it, you sure as heck don't get funding for it. So that's sort of been our, it's like drinking from a fire hose, looking at these funding announcements, and oftentimes it's really frustrating. We sat through a 2-hour webinar on housing funds, and only to learn that states and or cities over 10,000 and counties get money direct, like LGA, 10,000 and under, you must compete in a smaller pool. So it's kind of depressing to listen to all these funding announcements, but what we find is you gotta plan, you gotta have your act together, you gotta be prepared to be competitive. We're always in a competitive space. So.
Seems like every 10 years or so, we hear about how if that line coming from the west side ever goes, that's the only line serving this the hospital and stuff, the sewer, and all from that area. And the discussion is, well, we have to get a second line this part of the town coming up 12th Street, but then it's dropped. It's dropped because council changes, and It's down, it's
institutional
down.
memory goes out the window.
Yeah.
And I think whoever said it, the idea of having a group of, whether it's street commissioners or whoever, people with some institutional memory to help guide this, so that it becomes as useful to us as possible, and it isn't just kind of like, oh, you plug here, you plug here, you plug here, would be probably very helpful.
Yeah, we've done a really good job at removing houses and stuff from floodplains. We only have maybe 5 or 6 on East Main Street that really are in danger. Everybody else is built up in their basement squander, but that's about it, you know, so we've done a good job there, but I'm sure there's more.
Do we know how many more people are gonna get added when they versions? We're thinking we're gonna get a lot of new homeowners that didn't have big flood insurance that being added. And that's the only thing I can think is like, hey, we've got this plan underway, you know, but then what will happen is I think land surveyors are gonna be in business. What we've learned is once you get told, hey, you weren't in the floodplain, now you are, then you try to get your land surveyed and prove if you are or are not in it. This is gonna be the findings.
Well, we've had a healthy discussion. Did I hear a motion? Either way,
I don't, something, if not, I will.
it was the first meeting or the second from John. Any further discussion?
We're gambling 1,000 to get 50.
Or who knows? It's-
Or 110.
I just have a problem that says, you know, this is gonna target sites prone to flooding in Wabasha and determine engineered solutions to reduce flooding. And we know if Bolton and Maine is doing it or anybody else,
Oh, yeah.
that's gonna be millions and millions and millions of dollars. And we would never do it, and we're doing it, these engineered solutions.
Unless it's a major utility line, I mean, I think we have to, that's where I think we'd like to give them some guidance, like, don't tell us how to just generally manage stormwater, we wanna worry about aged infrastructure or.
It's not stormwater, it's flooding.
Well,
It's just not really
They can get grants based on the study.
that's my hope, that's my hope.
Well,
I
it's
know.
it's just
Yeah,
flooded.
quite honestly,
It's one of our-
grants.
It's just flooded, but it's going through our sewer plant, which cannot handle it. So it's not just
I
flooding.
understand that, but I'm just saying, they're saying that they're going to determine engineered solutions, and they're not going to, they're gonna be totally off the wall, off the record in cost.
Well,
I
we don't,
mean,
we're not accepting the cost of those solutions, but at least there's. Yeah.
Commenting about it.
I have the same skepticism. I'm sort of just playing the
the
game.
over floods.
We have to plan in order to do this work, and especially if we expect the enemy company to assist us with the work, so. All right, I'll call my own question. We have a motion in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Uh,
All right, thanks. No, it's a good healthy dialogue, but I'm with you, Dean. I feel like it's like. We worry about flood when we have a flood, and then we just hope we won't have another one. We've had 2 in the 10 I've been here, and 3 since I lived here. So we're gonna have these.
Evan is the second and 4th largest one. 7.
All right, and our cannabis moratorium is ready for, cannabis sales moratorium is ready for, or cannabis business moratorium is ready for a second read. Thank you for doing that in August. Do we have to do any, I forget procedurally, we just, it's just presented. Move to approve. We have a motion?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jean. So a motion from John, second from Jean. Any further discussion? I'll say that our cousin of mine is on the Community Health Commission for the city of Edina. And they're getting a little clutches about cannabis, but the question remains, you know, we're not thinking about this the same way we're thinking about alcohol, so it'd be interesting. I think Red Wing did disapprove use in public places unless licensed or unless licensed or city kind of event, that kind of thing. So keep your ears and eyes open, read the news, think about what, you know, currently doing. With alcohol, we don't have a licensing requirement on THC products, you know, some cities should do that, but the state's action was very aggressive, so now we have to think about what that means.
And I don't foresee a dispensary in Wabasha at all, because the law says that a dispensary for one dispensary for every 14,000 individuals. And that's
Yeah.
per county. So I don't see a big impact.
Right.
Which is okay.
Well, no less than one.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
so what the state is basically saying is, we're gonna allow this, we're gonna tax it, we want to see tax revenue, and we're not gonna allow you to prevent it fully, so.
Yeah.
We have to figure out the rest of it.
Yeah.
All right, with that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And I think that happens.
We gotta do eight.
Yeah, eight, yeah, so painting of the Eagle Center dock pilings, it's pretty straightforward in the agenda, but, the International Eagle Center wants to see those pilings painted. They'll cover that initial first time cost of $5,000, but the limit thinks that if it's not done at a $60,000 price tag, to really point, then it will need to be done again every 4 or 5 years. So, any questions on this?
So I hold this.
Yeah.
Because, I'm okay with the 5,000, I'm paying the 5,000, but it states that, next, after this payment phase, that the city should pay for the rest of it. I'm not for that, I think we should, we should do a partnership thing where they pay 50%, we pay 50%. Well, you're waving your head no, but you didn't hold, make motions hold it, I did.
I was going to though. I was-
Anyway, so that's where I'm sitting is to, let them pay the 5,000 this year, and then 5 or 6 years down the road, we'll pay 2,500 of that, 50% of that project. I'm not talking 50,000, I'm talking another.
It's to maintain the dock, right?
Or is it just purely cosmetic?
It's purely cosmetic, no, there's no protection.
They're not painting the insides of the pipes.
So what is the $60,000 solution? If I understand it was more like a sleeving and that could have been done initially, but now it's more like.
I got to actually look that up, but I just wanna say that the $60,000 cost, and our showing was here, was more like. If you wanna do this well and do it to last, versus putting a paintbrush over it. Do this way and it'll last a really long time and look nice. I believe there's just gonna be a painter out there. And the concern is it's not gonna look good in 4 to 5 years. It will.
It's gonna look the same, it's rusted, once that's iron, once those things get a rust coating on them, they stay that. They're designed, once you get that rust coating, it doesn't rust anymore. That's the way they make them. It's just, this is just a cosmetic thing, if they wanna paint it, I don't care if they wanna paint it, but as far as I'm concerned, they can paint it forever. Cause they're gonna, and it's not gonna, they're gonna be painting it more than every 5 years.
Yeah.
I talked to an individual at the condos, they paint theirs every 10, 15 years.
Oh.
And, so I don't have a problem with this at all.
I think, yeah.
So I'll make a motion to accept their $5,000 and, in coming years that we do a 50-50 split.
And whose discretion is when it gets painted? The city's dock, or the city's discretion.
Well, it's the city's dock, I mean, it's our portion, it's our.
I did that.
From the riverfront revitalization project.
So that's part of my motion. I'm just having that.
We have,
At his discretion.
do we have a second?
You know.
Might be the first thing. So my concern is that, and I will admit, when they came up and they weren't painted, when they placed them, they weren't painted, I was like, oh, because the kind of properties are. But for a marine application in a city's utility dock, it's probably appropriate that they're not painted because it does, they're gonna be like that forever. They're not gonna change from what they are now. So I'm not totally sure that Eagle Center is thinking about that, that they feel good about the issue of when it's rusting through the paint, that we can't just get out there and paint it that way when they think it looks unesthetic again. I'm worried about this sort of handshake about maintenance of that's gonna somehow be to their satisfaction versus our intent, it's our dock.
Yeah, I look back at my notes and apparently I don't have no recollection of this. I verbally told them, you can paint it, and then you were 100% responsible for it thereafter. And then I think the counter proposal would be, we want to paint it, we'll pay for it, but would you consider paying it for it in the future? So I think we told them once, I believe, we would not maintain this for you.
So I'll make another motion
Yeah,
to approve the $5,000 for the NHP to paint it, and then in the future, paint it at their cost at the city's discretion.
No, we're not paying $5,000.
There,
No,
they would,
they, that's why I decided,
they can,
It didn't sound like that, okay.
yeah, the Eagle
we're gonna
Center
let them paint our property.
yeah,
at the city's discretion.
for the second for that.
Second.
Thank you. So with that, any further discussion?
Just one more comment. That product, those duck is really only been there about a year. All those white caps on top of it. Shouldn't the contractor be responsible if things from work and that, because there's only like 3 of the white caps on top of it. They must have been installed
really?
wrong or something. Yeah, they've all been blown off or.
I noticed the,
So I don't think somebody should need to check every contractor.
good point. Okay, with that, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thanks, Brian. We have one opposition. I know they're not really pleased with that, but it's not the city's intent to keep it painted. I think that's gonna be ugly. That's gonna be that plan. Hard to paint, hard to keep painted. So with that addition to general business, we have a motion to approve the donations. There are many very generous donations, as often as the case. And as often as the case, they won't come up at the very last minute. Here we go. Okay, so to the library, $50 in memory of Eunice Lentich from Bill and Kate Perry, $100 in memory of Paul Cleese by friends and family, $10 in memory of Jim Johnson by Judy Notes. To the fire department, record services for department chicken feed, $400 value. Public Works, beach park slide replacement, $2,530 value. Did we have to have an acknowledgement for that one? Is that from Rotary, thank you. I thought that sounded familiar. The athletic field complex, these are all the athletic field complex, $1,000 from Brian and Sue Wolf, $1,000 from Ed and Joel Greenhack, $1,000 from Ed and Lucy Passy, $5,000 from Ted and Michelle Passy, $1,000 from Paul Bush, $2,500 from Don and Mary Jacoby, $2,500 from Perry Dental, $1,000 from John and Sandy Tyson, $2,500 from John and Sandy Wolf, $10,000 from John and Rose Doffing, $5,000 from Matt and Amanda Arns. Do we have a motion to approve the donation?
So
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Jeff. With all that included, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Do we have a motion to adjourn, or is there any other updates? Second by Jean. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay.